going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of Outside the Arena with Mac and Griff. I'm Griffin Senek, joined by my co-host, Mac Rommel, per usual. And today, we honestly don't really have anything too special planned. Kind of just a short and sweet episode. It seems like it's going to be. We've been doing a lot of stuff on our second channel, OTA Clips. So make sure to drop a subscribe there. That's where we've been uploading a lot of stuff surrounding NFL free agency as well as March Madness, which is going on as we speak. I believe when we're filming this, Creighton just pulled off the win against UCSB. Very close game. We'll talk about that on our second channel, OTA Clips, where we're doing daily recaps from March Madness. So make sure drop a subscribe there, as well as drop a subscribe here, of course, as well as go check us out on Apple Podcasts. Yeah, I guess we are a podcast, and Spotify as well. So with that, I guess we'll get started on our short agenda. We really don't got too much planned today, but first things first, the wide receiver market in the NFL free agency, it was very slow, but it finally kind of picked up, and it seems like it's basically wrapped up at this point in terms of the main guys that are gone. I know there's a few guys like T.Y. Hilton's still out there, Antonio Brown. There might be a few others I'm missing, but for the most part, I believe all the main ones are gone, and those main three that just signed recently this past week, Kenny Golladay, Will Fuller, and JuJu Smith-Schuster. So, Mac, I'm going to start with you. We'll start with Will Fuller. We'll start with probably the more minor one, but signs a one-year deal with the Miami Dolphins. Kind of went under the radar. I feel like it wasn't, broadcasted that much. Like, I feel like some people might have missed it, but Will Fuller to the Dolphins on a one-year deal, not too much money. What do you think of this deal? And obviously Will Fuller has to prove himself with that suspension impending. So what do you think of the deal?
Yep, I think it's a solid deal for him, especially a guy. You look at his career, and I've said this in previous episodes when we were predicting where he would go. He hasn't played over 14 games in a season in his career, and that goes a long way to show you he has an injury history. He has injuries, and you're just hoping and banking on and relying on could he be healthy. But I think last year is really where he took the next step as a wide receiver with DeAndre Hopkins out of the mix there in Houston. He was the number one receiver for the team. And in just 11 games last year, of course, he was the number one receiver with 53 receptions, 879 yards. And in those 11 games, he was basically and really on pace for 1,000 yards. So the Dolphins are getting a potential 1,000-yard receiver if Will Fuller could play and stay healthy for the remainder of the season. Of course, he's going to miss that first game because of the suspension. But alongside and after that, I think Will Fuller could have a good chance to put up 1,000 yards. Of course, you have players like Devontae Parker over there, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins go out in the draft and try and get a true number one at the 3 spot, or I believe it's the whatever their other first round pick is.
Yeah.
I won't be surprised if they go out and find another receiver there. So that's really the only thing I'll be looking forward to for the Dolphins at the wide receiver position. So I think this wide receiver core for the Dolphins will be, oh my gosh, a little bit analogies against me, but I think if they get a guy in the draft, this wide receiver core for the Dolphins will be very good. And if you go out there and get a running back as well, I think this offense will be very potent. It will really help Tua develop as a future starter in the league.
Yeah, good move by the Dolphins. They obviously need to go out, get a wide receiver, and they did. They got a star one in Will Fuller, and I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off Devontae Parker, who we kind of saw struggle as the true number one on that team. I feel like he is just, he's just not a number one wide receiver in the NFL. That's just the fact of the matter. As a number two, though, I think he's going to be a fantastic player, and I think the Dolphins really got a great 1-2 punch there. And you just look at this offense. They need, and they still need to go out and get weapons for Tua. That offense is just incomplete for a team that almost made the playoffs. It's kind of surprising because that offense really does not have many playmakers when you look at it. I mean, the O-line is not very good. The tight end position, they do have Mike Gesicki, so you can get some credit there. He was solid for them last year. Wide receiver, I mean, it's a solid position. I mean, they had guys like Jakeem Grant make big plays for them last year, but outside of Devontae Parker, there's really no star power there. But Will Fuller, you get a star power guy, a guy who you can plug in your number one. It's only a 1-year deal. He's trying to prove himself, get that long-term deal. We saw another 1-year deal with JuJu, which we'll hit on in a bit. But it's a good step in the right direction for this Miami team. Who obviously is looking to make a move on the future and get their feet set. Obviously, a lot of people thought they might end up with Aaron Jones. He remained in Green Bay, so running back could still be a position they look to upgrade as well. Obviously, Myles Gaskin is there, but is he a franchise running back? We don't really know quite yet. Still a little unproven. So we'll see. The offense, it's It's getting there. Obviously, if they add a guy like a Deshaun Watson, you're saying, "Oh my God!" But Tua is also, unprovenness has hurt them. They obviously did bring in Jacoby Brissett to back up Tua, so that'll be interesting. It's a fly here. Excuse that, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was a solid move by them. And Jesus, this thing's annoying me. And nothing they had to commit to too long term, which is a solid move on their end.
Yeah, 100%. As you said, I'll tell you how you pointed out some underrated guys like Jakeem Grant, who had to come up and make some plays last year. And I think that the developing offensive line last year, of course, they drafted a few offensive linemen. They even went out and tried to see if they could bring Isaiah Wilson along. The Texans for a first round pick.
Went
He
to
was
my
way.
rival high school, Poly Prep.
It's pretty wild, but he's got some issues. But the Dolphins, they have a lot to look forward to on the offensive line. And if you get a running back in there along with another wide receiver, I think the Dolphins will be set up great for the future.
Yeah, and I think with that, I'd pose you this question in terms of the AFC East right now. Obviously, a bunch of free agent moves have been made. The Jets went out, got Corey Davis, Carl Lawson. Patriots had the biggest offseason out of anyone so far. And the Buffalo Bills, obviously, one of the best teams in the AFC, the second best last year. Where do you think the Dolphins rank right now with the move of Will Fuller and their offseason so far? Obviously, outside of Fuller, they cut Van Noy. They haven't been too active outside of that. Their defense has probably gotten worse this offseason, I would say. So, where would you rank the Dolphins in this division right now?
I'd probably have them at number two still. I still have the Bills number one. I think the Dolphins would be number two. The Patriots, you still have Cam Newton as the starter. I don't believe in him, and you got to see how these guys work together, everyone that you sign. But the Dolphins, it's really the same team. You lose a few players and you get Will Fuller, so I think that's going to be great. And then this year's draft, you have tons of picks, so you're going to be able to fill a lot of those needs. So it's really the same team as last year. You may have taken a little bit of a dip, but I don't think it's going to be that much of a dip. And throughout the draft, I think they're going to get right back to where they were last year. And if not, I think they'll be even better.
I have them third in the division right now. I think New England has jumped over them, but that said, I think the advantage for the rest of the offseason heavily favors Miami. Miami, obviously, with the third pick in the draft, who knows what they'll do there? Obviously, they're in talks or they've been in touch with Deshaun Watson, but that situation is so unknown at the moment. He's obviously got all these allegations now of sexual assault and harassment and whatnot. He's denying them, but it's not a good look for him. Texans have declined all calls. I mean, it's just a mess right now with him. Honestly, the situation as it stands, I don't know if he'll end up getting traded. It just seems like a mess, and I could see him sitting out. But I would say the Patriots have leaped them just because I agree with you. I'm not a Cam Newton fan by any means of the imagination, but I do believe in Bill Belichick, that he is a good coach. Obviously, I think Brady proved this year that it was primarily Brady, and that Bill Belichick couldn't build the team with just Cam Newton, but you're gonna get some of those defensive guys back that opted out last season. Patrick Chung is retiring, but you look at a bunch of those guys. They brought back the center David Andrews. They obviously lost Joe Thuney. They brought a bunch of guys in on the defensive side. Matthew Judon, one of them obviously on the offensive side. It's just Cam's gonna have a lot more weapons this year, and for me, I have more faith in that defense. I think that defense will be a top 5 defense in the league. And right now, Miami to me is just I'm still not sold on Tua. I kind of haven't been sold on him since he's made his debut in the NFL. So I got to see more from Tua to put them above New England right now. But I just think the experience of New England and just their talent defensively puts them over Miami. But Miami still plenty of work to be done in this offseason. So I think it's fluctual where I'll end up at the end, but right now I'd say New England has the 2 spot for me. But Buffalo obviously locks it up at the top, and obviously the Jets are in the cellar in that division.
Yeah, you can't root against Buffalo, and the Jets. Unless something happens with their number 2 pick, you luck out with a guy like Zach Wilson or something. They'll probably stick at the
I
last
just
place.
got some breaking news in the NFL world. The Denver
Oh,
Broncos are going to sign Kyle Fuller, the 2-time Pro Bowler cornerback, to a 1-year deal for about $10 million. So I guess we can talk about that real quick. That kind of came out of nowhere, but
yep.
the state of the Denver Broncos, we haven't really talked about them too much. Obviously, they let Philip Lindsay go to the Houston Texans. So Melvin Gordon's going to be the starting back there. They did extend Justin Simmons, their star safety, as well. What do you think of this move for the Broncos? Obviously, it's a short-term deal, but do you think this team has the pieces right now to compete for a playoff spot?
Right now, I'm not sure if they have the pieces with Drew Lock. Coming into last year, a lot of people were high on him and was like, he could be a sleeper for MVP. This season he really wasn't even close to being anything near that. Obviously, he did lose Cortland Sutton. I think that may help out a little bit this year. But the offense, it's going to be solid. You got those young guys, Judy, Sutton, and Hamler. So your wide receiver core is going to be great. You have Noah Fan at the tight end position. So you got a lot of young stars and young good players on that offensive side. Defensively, you still have Von Miller, who's aging, but he's still a good player. You got Bradley Chubb. You got some good young guys, and then Justin Simmons, who just signed a mega deal to be the highest paid safety in NFL history. And they're adding, I was about to say AJ Boye, but that brings us to the next point. They signed Kyle Fuller, but they got rid of AJ Boye, who was obviously their best cornerback last year. So this is going to fill that number one cornerback spot and need. And you're replacing him with a much better player, two-time Pro Bowler and a former All-Pro, and a guy who was a key part of that Bears defense. And I think this is a great signing for them. The Broncos, they do have pieces to get it done, but I think defensively they may need a few more players, and offensively you still may need to look for a better quarterback.
Yeah, I think the Broncos are in a bit of a bad spot. You're in a tough division as it is. The Chiefs are obviously running that division with ease. The Chargers are a very good team, in my opinion. I think that team is going to be playoff caliber this year. Obviously, they brought in Corey Linsley, which is a good move, and they also have a like the 12th or 13th pick in the draft, I believe. So they'll be able to upgrade their team there. And then you look at the Raiders, and the Raiders are just a solid, like a team that would be like an 8-8 kind of team there. So to me, Denver they're in a spot where they need to rebuild, and they've been trying to, and it's just not really worked. And I think they made a mistake. They need to either trade Von Miller or they should have just let him go. I don't think having him continue to play is doing them any favors. It's just taking up money from potentially other guys who could be, you could be investing in some young guys, giving them more playing time and seeing what happens with them. But I agree. I don't think Drew Lock's the quarterback of the future there. They've tried their best, and this year just showed that obviously you will get Cortland Sutton back, which you mentioned, which is huge, but they have the pieces on the offensive side. There's really no excuses. You can blame the O-line not being 100% and not the best in the league or one of the top tier O-lines, but you have great weapons there. You got great tight end. You've had great running backs. You've had great receivers, and you haven't been able to get the job done. So for me, we've heard, obviously Deshaun again, the Deshaun Watson situation. You've heard he wants to go to Denver or San Francisco. I mean, you've heard so many things, but if they trade for Deshaun Watson, that team could be a totally different situation. That team could be that team's a playoff team in my eyes if they trade for Deshaun Watson with that offense and the defenses. It can hold its own, and I think this Kyle Fuller move is a good move. Just to kind of keep that defense rolling and have strong guys. They're the secondary. I mean, if you're leading the secondary with Kyle Fuller and Justin Simmons, it's a quality secondary. That's two great pieces there. Obviously, you got the linebackers and Chubb and Von Miller, who are stars there. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. To me, they're still the worst team in that division just because of Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock is not very good. And when you have a bad quarterback in this league, it tends to equivalent to not really gaining success. So bit of a breaking news there type thing. But yeah, why not? We needed content. So
We did, just to make it a little bit longer. And I guess with that, should we go to our next wide receiver?
Yep.
And before we get to the main guy, of course, let's talk about JuJu Smith-Schuster, who got his 1 year, $8 million deal back with the Steelers. Of course, there were a bunch of things saying he didn't really want to be with the Steelers at points. The Steelers weren't sure if they were going to re-sign him. So it was a bunch of different conflicting kind of stories that came out, and he was getting other and bigger offers from other teams. Like you saw the Eagles, you saw the Ravens, you saw a bunch of other teams making offers that were better than this in long term. So this deal kind of seems for me like he's more betting on himself. Could he have a bounce back year and put up even bigger numbers so he get that long term deal next off season? But JuJu last year, he had 97 catches, 831 yards, 9 touchdowns. So he's a guy that's obviously a big part and big focal point of that offense with the 97 receptions. But I mean, 831 yards on that many receptions, it's just not going to cut it. So he's obviously not having the production yards wise, which you would want to see, but he is getting the touchdowns. Of course, he had the 9. And I do think, and I'm going to say this and I'll put this out there, I am surprised at the amount of teams that were really interested in him and getting him on their team, especially after last year, all the kind of problems that they've had in the locker room with the TikTok Corvette kind of thing, dance the other team's logos. It was just childish kind of things. But I think hopefully Mike Tomlin this year could help turn that around. And I think this is more of JuJu betting on himself. and learning from this past year. So this next offseason, he get another big deal.
Yeah, for me, this one is I think Juju likes Pittsburgh. I didn't think he wanted to leave necessarily. And I think it's a mix of just the wide receiver market as it is, and Kenny Golladay being the only guy who's going to get a multi-year deal. That's just the
Mhm.
situation right now with wide receivers. Teams are not willing to pay these guys 4 or 5 years. Especially like Juju is a bit unproven in my eyes still. I mean, there's still question marks with him. He's been so inconsistent. He's looked as a number two, like a superstar when AB was there, but as the number one is kind of struggled and hasn't put up the same level of success necessarily. So I think he just wanted to stay, and I think it was the right situation for Pittsburgh. I don't think they had the money to give this guy the long-term deal he was going to be looking for, which was probably 3 4 years, $10 million plus per range per year. And they didn't. They gave him a 1 year deal. And it's going to be, like you said, a kind of prove it type deal for Juju, where he's going to have to play good and see if he can get that long term deal. And he's betting on himself, and also seems like he wants to stay in Pittsburgh and with like Chase Claypool and all those guys. And we'll see what happens. I'm not big on Pittsburgh, and I guess with that, Pittsburgh's had a weird offseason. They obviously lose Bud Dupree. Pouncey retires. Big Ben's coming back, but they haven't really added to their team. They lost some corners as well. Mike Hilton. Where do you think this team? Obviously, they finished first in the division, but where do you think they rank? Obviously, with the Bengals, the Browns, and as well as the Ravens. I guess we can talk some division here. So, where do you have them in the AFC North right now?
Yeah, right now, I mean, I'd probably have them 3, and I'd even honestly, I could go as low as 4 right now. I think the Bengals have a lot on the table with Joe Burrow coming back. If you could fix up the offensive line a little bit, you got a young player with T. Higgins, you got Joe Mixon, and your defense is solid after that Trey Hendrickson signing. So this team has a lot to look forward to, and especially they got their young corners. They took Mike Hilton away from the Steelers. They added Cheeto Uzie. So they got some young guys who could produce, and I think the Steelers, if they played how they did at the end of last year, I think they will end up at that 4th spot and end up behind Cincinnati. But right now, I'm just going to be safe. I'm going to keep them at 3, but I think it'll be close between them and the Bengals. But at the top of the division, I'm obviously going to have to say the Browns. Baker Mayfield proved he could play great last year. You're going to have Odell back. Jarvis Landry was great. You have the dynamic duo at running back with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, defensively, Myles Garrett, and the list just goes on and on of how good this team it really is. So I think that's an undisputed number 1 for that division. And then number 2, I'm going to give it to the Ravens. They still need a true number 1 wide receiver. And hopefully, I think they will be able to address that in the draft, potentially defensively. I really have no worries. You lost Matt Judon, but your defense still has tons of elite players on the secondary and up front. So I'm not really worried about them. So I think it's going to be close between Cincinnati and the Steelers fighting for that number 3 spot.
You're really hating on Pittsburgh. I also would put them at 3. I don't think the Bengals are quite there yet. Obviously, the Bengals had huge additions to that defense, like you said. Trey Hendrickson, Chidobe Awuzie, whatever the fuck his name is. Oh, yes, I'm cursing. Whatever.
No, we're gonna get the
Mike
explicit
Hilton, whatever those bums are. But the offense, to me, you lose AJ Green. You didn't really do too much there. Tight end is still a disaster. Offensive line is a disaster. You got Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, obviously, who are great players. And obviously, Joe Burrow's come back. So to me, I still think Pittsburgh is better than them. Give Pittsburgh credit. They still have a fantastic defense at the end of the day. Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. Those 3 guys can carry any defense in the league. I expect them to. They also have Devin Bush still there. He's going to be coming back as well. So you can't forget about all those guys and just not give those guys their credit. But like you said, I don't think the Steelers anymore are on that level of the Cleveland Browns or the Baltimore Ravens, who to me are 2 of the, I believe, top 4 teams in that AFC right now. I believe them 2 and the Bills and the Chiefs are the top 4 teams in the AFC right now. For me, Browns, Ravens, I think it depends, honestly. And I think it depends on what the Ravens do at wide receiver to me. They need someone. They didn't go out and really get anyone. I believe they signed maybe someone to play wide receiver for them. I forget who, but I believe they might have signed someone. But even if they didn't,
and they did offer Kenny Golladay a contract, just didn't.
they did, yeah. But to me, the wide receiver is a huge issue for them, and they are losing Matt Judon and in terms of what they brought in Kevin Zeitler for the O-line. So I guess you can say good move there. But Lamar Jackson struggled last year. And, we'll see what happens there. But Cleveland, to me, is the most complete team in that division. We haven't touched on it much, but their moves this offseason have been good, and it's been targeted to the defensive side, although they did bring back Hollywood Higgins himself, Rashad Higgins, who, him and Baker Mayfield has a strong connection. Obviously, he was involved in that controversial fumble type play into the touchback. Not his fault. He obviously helmet to helmet, but their offensive side, it's elite. Like you said, Odell will come back. The O-line is elite. But on the defensive side, we saw a lot of issues, and they addressed a lot of those issues. They brought in some guys for the secondary, John Johnson being the premier guy, as well as Troy Hill, good defensive back, both from the Rams. They brought in Anthony Walker to play middle linebacker for them. He's a solid guy. They bring in Malik Jackson, Tack McKinley to play on the D line. So they're just making all these good moves on the defensive side. Some underrated guys in the league that most casuals, I would say, wouldn't know of. But they are solid players. I believe Troy Hill was the defensive leader in touchdowns last year. So, guys who were making an impact on the field. And to me, that defense, they'll get Grant Delpit back, who missed all of last year. He hasn't played yet. That defense is going to be better this year, and I think that's the key. They've got a great safety group now with Delpit, Ronnie Harrison, and John Johnson. So I'm excited to see what the Browns are going to do. But to me, the Browns are the most complete team in that division, I feel. And I just feel like the Ravens are, Marcus Peters starting to age a little bit. Matt Judon was key on that defense. Calais Campbell, we'll see what happens with him. But I think the Browns might be the team to be in that division right now. But all season is still not over. So I won't say that it is my definitive pick for the year.
Yeah, completely agree. And I don't think he's saying this just because he has those Brown roots in him. So those Browns, they're going to put up a good fight this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are competing for a Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, last year we saw them, they were close, but we'll see. Maybe the Browns can swing it around this year, but they also have a lot of draft capital. They haven't traded any of their picks, so they will be ready to go in the draft.
Yeah, this will be an explosive team, and another team that is trying to get a little bit more explosive. This is the New York Giants, who today went out and got Kenny Golladay, the star receiver from the Detroit Lions, who got the 4-year, $72 million deal, $18 million a year, with I believe 40 something in guarantees. So this was an interesting signing. It was pretty obvious that this was a team that Kenny Golladay wanted to go to, and the Giants. This was a player that they wanted to sign badly. He spent the extra night in New York last night. So, whenever this goes up Friday night, he spent the extra night in New York after the team meeting. So that was obviously a good sign there. And I'm going to say, what do you think about this move? And do you think this will put the Giants up there and have a chance to fight for first in division?
It's a great move by the Giants, and there's no doubt about that. Kenny Golladay is a star receiver in the league, and the Giants now have their superstar receiver. And you look at the offense now; they've made good moves on the offense this offseason. They bring in Kyle Rudolph as well to shore up that tight end group where Evan Ingram has been inconsistent. But Kenny Golladay is huge for them. Now that wide receiver room, I don't know where Golden Tate or what his status is, or even his bum ass is still on the team, but yeah.
No.
They've obviously got Kenny, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. So that's a good group there. It's a great wide receiver group for Daniel Jones. And the key to the Giants team, the defense is good. They obviously re-signed Leonard Williams. The defense was solid last year. This team is going to play how Daniel Jones plays. If Daniel Jones develops, stops turning over the ball, becomes a fantastic passing quarterback, this team is going to win the division. I mean, at the end of the day, they have the best defense. Them and the football team are close. I'll probably give it to the football team. I won't discredit them, but the football team, their quarterback situation, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. So you never know what's going to happen with that. Obviously, football team went out, brought in Curtis Samuel as well. So they've got some weapons on that offense as well. Logan Thomas, underrated. Obviously, Scary Terry, Antonio Gibson, two headliners on there. But Dallas Cowboys are another team for me. Their defense is there, but Dak coming back will be huge. We'll see what their offense is going to be explosive. We know that. Can their defense hold up? They obviously brought in Keanu Neal, which was a good move to shore up their secondary. I like that move a lot from them. Keanu Neal's very good safety. So we'll see what happens. I expect Dallas to continue to address the defense in the draft as well. So to me, the only team in this division that's going to be out of it is Philadelphia. They're completely out of it. But other than that, I mean, this move of Kenny Golladay, to me, puts the Giants right up there in the conversation. And to me, if Daniel Jones has a good season, the Giants might have the best shot to win the division. Obviously, Dallas, we'll see what happens there. And football team, and another, good young team that, it seems like is just waiting to find their franchise quarterback at this point.
Yep, 100%. Big signing for Big Blue. They're getting one of the best contested catching receivers in the league. And in those 4 years that he's played with the Lions, 2 of those seasons were 1,000+ yard seasons. Where in 2019 he also led the league with 11 touchdowns. So this guy is obviously explosive, getting yards and getting touchdowns. But last year he obviously had the injuries that really took him out of the league or he wasn't able to play for basically the entire season, only played a few games where he only had around 20 catches for like a little bit above 300 yards. So this is going to be a big signing for the team, and hopefully he come back healthy. And I do think, and I love the point you made about Daniel Jones, this team is going to go wherever Daniel Jones takes him. As you said, he's going to have to improve. And some of my friends, they've said Daniel Jones, if he could develop, it's going to be pretty scary. But he really hasn't shown signs of taking that next step. And hopefully Kenny Golladay will be a player that could do that. But if Daniel Jones doesn't show any signs of getting much better this offseason, you may have to look and see. We'll check all your options for next offseason. Do you move on from him in the near future? What may that be? But if Daniel Jones can improve, I really do think the Giants have probably the highest and best chance at winning this division this year. But of course, as you said, the Eagles are really the only team you count out of it right now with their quarterback situation. Just all their players, a lot of older players, terrible cap space right now. But for the Washington football team, I think they're going to be a team that's going to compete. And I think if they had their quarterback of the future, if they have had a quarterback, this would easily be the undisputed division winner for me. They have in my opinion, the best defense in the NFC East offensively. They have Terry McLaurin, obviously, Curtis Samuel now. So 2 Ohio State brothers are going to have some great moments there with Antonio Gibson in the backfield. So the football team is going to be great. And the Cowboys, it's obvious they're going to have one of the best offenses in the league. It's just going to be a matter of what their defense could do. Your offense can't be putting up 40 a game. Your defense gives up 43 points a game, and that's how you're losing. So I really do think after this draft is when we're going to be able to pick and choose who will be a winner in the rankings. Could the Dallas Cowboys fix their defense? Do the Giants shore up some of those other spots defensively? Maybe another corner or whatever it may be in the football team. Could they potentially find a quarterback in the future? And I think the draft will really shake out and shape up how this division will turn out next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the point I agree most with is this is a make or break year for Daniel Jones. The pressure is on this. This isn't your second year anymore. It's your third year. The year after this, the team's deciding if they want to extend you your fifth year option. So, yeah, it's going to be a make or break year for Daniel Jones. If he does not play good and doesn't show signs of improvement, with their roster, I think they need to move on, and they would have to move on quick. They would have to get a new quarterback and not. I don't think through the draft. I think you'd want to trade for a professional at that point, a professional guy who's been in the league for a while and
Yeah.
who's ready to go, because this roster is ready to win at the end of the day.
Yep, it really is. Daniel Jones, wherever he takes them is where they will end up. And I like the point you made about going out and getting a quarterback who's proven that they could make plays and be a big time quarterback in this league. The past few years in the draft, I mean, a lot of these guys who were highly regarded. I mean, you see Sam Darnold, he really hasn't panned out to be that third overall pick. You have Josh Rosen, who knows what the hell he's even doing right now. A lot of these guys who were taken highly haven't really panned out.
I wonder if he got a ring for being on the practice squad of the Bucs. He probably did.
He probably did. That actually, or do you have to be on the 53-man roster? I'm not sure, but either way, a lot of these guys who were highly regarded coming into the draft haven't really panned out. Some of these guys who are going later in the first round, or even some later round gems, have been the guys who have been making more plays in the league. So I love that point you made about going out and finding a proven quarterback in this league for the Giants if Daniel Jones doesn't work out.
Yeah, the Giants will be a team to monitor this upcoming season, but that does it for our NFL stuff. Actually got a lot of time out of that, surprisingly. So
We did.
did well for talking about 4 guys the whole time. But with that, we'll talk about some baseball as the MLB season is approaching. I believe opening day is now in 11 days or something like that. Something very
Coming up quick.
Yeah, it's coming up quick. So we're definitely going to want to try and cover a lot more baseball, but we'll continue with our preseason. I guess, what is it? Like preseason
standing predictions,
Yeah,
something
I guess
like
standing prediction. I was trying to think like preseason, like preview. There it is. There's the word. Preseason preview. MLB season. Maybe next week, since MLB will be starting, we'll do um, award predictions for the season. We'll do that'll be a fun thing to do. So we'll roll that out next week, as well as potentially bringing back another mock draft. But we are going to start today in the AL East. We've already done the NL, so if you want to get caught up, go back to our previous videos. AL East, Mac, what is your projection for the order of this? And if you want to go in depth a little bit about some of these teams.
Yep, right at the top, of course, I have the New York Yankees. It's been like this the past few years. They've been at the top, and you do have some other teams that could compete to win the AL East, like the Blue Jays and the Rays. But the Yankees right now, they have all the talent that they need to win a World Series. In the past few seasons, they've had the talent, but once it's time to play in the playoffs, it really hasn't worked out. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, and that's going to be something to monitor with this team. But if they stay healthy, this team has a really good chance to win the World Series this year. And they also have the star power that it takes to get there. You have two players in Aaron Judge and DJ LeMay who could even be AL MVPs this year. Stanton's amazing when healthy. Clint Frazier is a star in the making. Gleyber Torres is always a monster when he's at the plate. So what I'm really looking and focusing on for the Yankees, could this rotation hold up? Could Corey Kluber stay healthy? And if he does, I think this team would have a solid rotation, and the Yankees would have a good chance at making it far in the playoffs. And right behind them, I have the Toronto Blue Jays, only a few spots behind them. And I think there's a lot of hope for this team, not just because you could have a lot of hope for these fans of the Blue Jays, not only because you could have some games in Toronto this upcoming year, but you do have some good players there and a lot of players that could take some big steps, like Vladimir I can't even do these words, but you know what I'm saying. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And then you also have Marcus Semien, who is going to be good at second base, while George Springer obviously brings his all-star production. And if they could find a number two, forget that part. But the Blue Jays, I have them second in the AL East right now, and right behind them, I also have the Tampa Bay Rays. You have Blake Snell, Charlie Morton, who are gone, and that creates two big holes in the Rays rotation, and that's not good for a team that in the past has relied so much on the rotation. But Colin McHugh and Rich Hill will help there, and even with these additions, the team still doesn't have a starting pitcher who you could really 100% trust. The Rays do have the amazing farm system, of course, but you're going to have to hope that rotation will hold up this year. But they're still expected to be a pretty good team, third place in the AL East for me right now. And then right behind them, I have the Boston Red Sox with Eduardo Rodriguez returning after his battle with heart issues because of COVID. So that will obviously help a little bit if you could come back 100%. And to bolster their rotation, they went out and they signed Garrett Richards and added Enrique Hernandez and Hunter Renfroe to their lineup. So they also made a few trades this offseason. They got the Andrew Benintendi trade really came out and proved well for the Red Sox. They got exactly what they would want. And then also with Chris Sale back, the team should be a little bit more competitive than last year. And then obviously last place in the AL East, have the Baltimore Orioles. This is a team who obviously is in the early stages of a rebuild and will probably finish as one of the worst teams in the MLB this year. Their ownership doesn't seem to want to spend a lot of money. So you can see a few trades out of this team before the trade deadline, like Freddie Galvis and others who are potential trade candidates for this team. They do have the farm talent that it takes to have some guys who could come along in the future, but it'll probably be a few years before some of these guys start to come along, like Grayson Rodriguez. So Baltimore Orioles are in last place for me in the AL East.
It's a good breakdown.
I try.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have the same standings as you. I'm not gonna lie, I did no prep for this, so we'll see what happens. But Yankees number one to me, as much as it pains me to say, they're the best team in the division. They're most complete, even though that rotation is a huge question mark. You got to give credit to the lineup. Obviously, DJ LeMahieu, he's been an MVP candidate the past few years. He's been a great player for them. Aaron Judge, and Giancarlo Stanton, it's always going to be the injuries with these guys. When on the field and at their best, they're some of the best players in baseball. But their injury history, Stanton more than Judge, I would say. These guys are just never on the field. They can never play. And, it's been a problem for them. They've had to rely on some other guys like a Mike Talkman or even the old, trusty old faithful Brett Gardner there to play some left. Always a good left fielder. And Brett has always been there. But like you said, Clint Frazier, young up and coming player. Gio Urshela, another good young player. Miguel Andujar, who knows what he's up to these days. He's a little unproven. Lineup's good. Gary, who knows what, he's had a good spring, but will it translate? Probably not. Good lineup, great lineup. Rotation, it's very unproven. Obviously, Garrett Cole, he's, the ace. He's great. Top 5 pitcher in baseball. Not going to call him number 2 because, I just don't believe he is, but top 5 pitcher in baseball and Garrett Cole. Outside of him, though, it's, you get some question marks. Corey Kluber, Jameson Taillon, both coming off injuries. Luis Severino is going to come back. He's coming off Tommy John. We'll see what happens with that. Jordan Montgomery has looked good in spring. So, assuming he'll be in the rotation start there, we'll see what happens. Prospects like Divy Garcia, Clark Schmidt. Can these guys be contributors this year? We'll see. And then Domingo Germán. I mean, this guy's, abused, his girlfriend or assaulted her or whatnot. And, it's crazy that this guy's still on the team and hasn't been released, in my opinion. But, can he produce after missing a whole year? And can this guy keep it together off the field to stay on the field? We'll see what happens there. Bullpen, obviously, is normally a strength of this team. They did lose Adam Ottavino. They bring in Darren O'Day. That'll be, he's always kind of been a solid guy there. Obviously, the lefty pair of Zach Britton and Aroldis Chapman will be the core of that bullpen. With Chad Green, he's been solid. Tommy Kaline, not on the team anymore. That might hurt him, but he was injured for most of last year. So they're going to have to rely on some of these other lesser-known guys potentially, as the well-known core of that bullpen seems to have broken up with the Ottavino trade, as well as Tommy Kaline being away. So that puts the Yankees for me at 1. Goodness gracious, a lot of talking. My throat's already feeling it. Toronto at 2. You covered it pretty well. Yeah, the mock draft's bad. I'm gonna need some water for that one.
Yeah, I know. You have to get the gallon jugs and just start sipping on it.
Oh. But Toronto at 2. Good lineup. They bring in George Springer, like you said, as well as Marcus Semien, 2 great players, former All-Stars. We'll see if Marcus Semien can regain his All-Star form. George Springer, expect nothing the less from him except for an All-Star season. Young guys, young core, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Vlad Guerrero Jr., Kevin Biggio, Bo Bichette, Teoscar Hernandez. These guys are sluggers. They're amazing. Really, really strong core they got there. Bullpen, they bring in Kirby Yates. Good move. He had a bit of a down year last year with San Diego, but he should be solid. The rotation, a lot of question marks in my eyes. Hyun-Jin Ryu is solid. They obviously have Nasty Nate, the prospect himself, Nate Pearson. He's expected to be great. A lot of questions, though, with guys like Robbie Ray, Steven Matz, obviously the former Met. Those guys are a bit of more question marks for me, so we'll see what happens. So for me, you're not quite better than the Yankees, but still enough to be number 2. Rays, you covered them pretty well. They lost, and this team is, you just feel bad for the fans. It's just poverty franchise at the end of the day. They have no money. And, they can't afford these players like Charlie Moore and Blake Snell. They're gone. So rotation is going to be headed by Tyler Glass. Now they'll see if they can get guys like Michael Walker, Rich Hill, and, who's the other guy you mentioned? Colin McHugh, to provide for them in that rotation. Bullpen is always great. They've got a ton of 100-mile-per-hour throwers out there. I forget what it was like oh my God, it's like the stable or something like that. They call it something weird, but it's great. The bullpen's great. Lineup. You got Brandon Lowe, Austin Meadows, those guys leading, Kevin Kiermaier, Ji-Man Cho. That guy's a fun guy to play around with. Really good. And obviously their farm system, like you mentioned, is great, up and coming. Best prospect in baseball, Wander Franco they have, as well as acquiring Luis Patino in the Blake Snell deal, top pitching prospect. So we'll see what happens there. But to me, this team, Randy Arozarena as well. We'll see what happens with him in this full rookie season. Obviously, the playoff hero for that team. If he can continue that success, this team could be a very fun team to watch. So, but that puts them at 3 for me. I'm not going to talk about these other teams because my breath or my fucking it's gone. Boston, they're not a bad team. In other divisions, they might be better, but in this division, they're going to be 4th. Rotation, question marks everywhere. A lot of those guys have just missed time or not proven. Bullpen is kind of a mess at the moment. Lineup should be good with, Xander Bogaerts, the best player on that team. JD Martinez is a very good player as well. Alex Verdugo is, up and coming. He's shown good flashes. Prospects in the farm. Jeter Downs, I know, is a very highly regarded shortstop. And it's just going to take time for Boston. Rafael Devers as well. If he can have a breakout year, that could be huge. But they lose Jackie Bradley, Andrew Benintendi, like you mentioned. So those are going to hurt them. And then Baltimore, obviously, in the cellar. It's more about prospects and rebuilding for this team. They've got some good young pitching. Go back and watch our interview with Orioles broadcaster Jeff Arnold. If you want a little more on that team and their farm system, he talks about it towards the end of the podcast. I believe they've got some good young guys there, and ones that are not known as well, but that are, Jeff, who's watched a lot of minor league games, expects them to do well. But obviously, the head of their prospect and their farm system is Adley Rutschman, the catcher. That guy's gonna be a stud out of Oregon State. The Beavers, they won their first March Madness game as a 12 seed, so that was fun to watch. We'll see what they do in the second round. But Adley Rutschman might be up sometime this year, so stay tuned for him. But obviously, a rebuilding season for the Baltimore Orioles. So that is my division, same order as you.
Whew. That was a lot of talking for you. I could tell you're a little bit gassed. Yeah. So next week we're planning. You gotta have the gallon jug on one side. And we're just taking sips in between each pick. So up next, we obviously are going to be doing the AL Central. And I'll start with this so you get your mouth and all those juices flowing in your mouth and not be dry anymore. So I'll start this off. And at the top, I have the Chicago White Sox. The Chicago White Sox. And as the Chicago Cubs start to fall, the Chicago White Sox are on the rise, and I think that's what's special about this team. They're going to get a lot of attention in the upcoming few seasons, even as soon as this season. Of course, the team has a great lineup with players like Tim Anderson, Lewis Robert. And this is a roster which is loaded with all-star candidates that also has a very, very deep batting order with players like Adam Eaton. And also, not to mention, this team has an amazing rotation. So I wouldn't be surprised that this team's a very dangerous team for years to come now. And second, I have behind them the Minnesota Twins. And this season, it's pretty obvious that the Twins are committed to having a great defense over everything. They added on Andrelton Simmons. Okay, I'm getting the names. I'm trying to get them. And now they have at least 4 players that could be Gold Glove finalists, and with a starting lineup, with a lineup that includes Max Kelper, Josh Donaldson, and Nelson Cruz, and many more. The team will have a lot of firepower. So just like last year, everything will likely come down to the rotation for this team. And now third, I have the Cleveland Indians. This is a team that lost an amazing player in Lindor. Although the addition of Eddie Rosario provides a slight boost in the outfield, they still need a lot of help, and it won't be enough. And with a bullpen that could be electrifying, there's a lot of excitement around a rotation that includes Shane Bieber and Tristan McKenzie. So Cleveland Indians have some things to look forward to, but that Lindor trade really mess things up for them. You're a little happy, I see. So right. Only a little happy. But Cleveland Indians now sitting at third place for me in the AL Central. And fourth, the Detroit Tigers. And although they may not be ready now, the Tigers do have an exciting future, in my opinion. They have top pitching prospects that could have a lot of potential in Casey Mize. And you're going to have to help me on this one. Tariq, whatever it is. Let's go with Tariq Skubal, whatever it is. So they do have a lot of potential there with some young, talented pitching prospects, and with an amazing rotation and number 1 overall pick Spencer Torkelson, a potential MVP candidate. This team could be dangerous in the near future. And then in last for me, I have the Kansas City Royals. And in a slow offseason, they have made some quiet moves. Mike Manor will be a nice piece in the rotation, and reunions with Greg Holland and Wade Davis that will add and keep some nice depth there in the bullpen. They shouldn't have a problem scoring runs, of course, and with a lot of positive for this team, there's still plenty of question marks. So the Royals, for me, will likely also finish near the bottom of the MLB this season.
Interesting. That's interesting for me. Here we go.
Here we go. Is the mouth juice or the juice is flowing?
Not quite. First, the White Sox. They're arguably the second best team in the AL for me. They are the second best team in the AL. Great lineup. I think, just because you're prep and you're not as well known about, the team. They have, former MVP Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson, obviously, like you mentioned, Yohan Moncada is a great player. Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez. They add Adam Eden, like you mentioned. Great bullpen that they added Liam Hendricks, top reliever in the game. They've got Aaron Bummer there. He's underrated. Jace Fry might still on the team. I don't really know. But they've got great guys in that bullpen. And the rotation, like you said, it's young, it's stud-like. Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel's in there. They've got some other guys too. Renato Lopez, I believe, is a solid piece there. But yeah, they're the best team in that division. It's their divisional win, and I expect them to win it with a pretty ease there. Second is the Twins, like you said. They lost a good chunk this offseason. They lose Rich Hill, they lose Jake Odorizzi, they lose Eddie Rosario to the Cleveland Indians as well. They lost a bunch of guys, but they did add Andrelton Simmons, like you said, going to be a good defensive team to watch. And their lineup's still great. They got Donaldson, Cruz, Rosario. Oh no, they don't have Rosario. That's awkward. Kepler, Mitch Garver's there, Miguel Sano. They got great guys in the lineup. Bullpen, a little shaky. They've got the duo of Taylor Rogers and what's his name? Taylor Rogers and someone else is back there in the bullpen. Good duo, but still to me it's the second team. Third team, I think it's close between these two, but I will give the Cleveland Indians the 3 seed. They lose Lindor and Carrasco in that huge deal. Obviously, they still have Jose Ramirez, who's one of the best players in baseball. Doubt he'll be there much longer in a Cleveland Indians uniform, but they do have guys like you said, Eddie Rosario. They bring in Andres Jimenez, who is a young star in my opinion. He's up and coming. Roberto Perez is a good catcher. They lose guys like Carlos Santana still though to Kansas City and pieces like that. So for me, this team is going to go as this rotation goes. It's a good rotation, good young rotation, as it always is in Cleveland. Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie, Zach Plesac, Adam Plutko, guys that you're going to want to keep an eye on there. All solid options there, and Cleveland will have a very good rotation, as they always do. Bullpen is, they got James Karinchak, an emblem of Ricky Vaughn and, Wild Thing from the Major League movies. They got a real life Wild Thing, had the haircut. I remember he just gave a dinger to Gio in the playoffs. It was Grand Slam. He had this whole aura, and we'll see how that plays out over a whole 162 season. But he's the guy to watch in that bullpen. Really, the only star left with Brad Hand leaving. So Cleveland is 3. Kansas City is a good team in my eyes. They added Carlos Santana, which was a good move. Mike Minor, like you said, they added some other guys as well that were very good moves. They still have Whit Merrifield, who's a very good baseball player. Jorge Soler, a few years ago was hit for like 50 home runs. So he's very good. Salvador Perez, one of the best catchers in baseball, still on that team. Rotation and pitching is going to be their flaws. Obviously, like you said, they make those veteran moves. They bring back guys like Greg Holland, Wade Davis, who are on that World Series team that did take down my New York Mets. But that team was built off their bullpen, and we'll see if they can do the same. I don't think those guys will have the same success, obviously. Greg Holland, kind of had a resurgence last year, but they do have some young stars in that bullpen. They have Jeff Stalmont, who's, very good up-and-coming pitcher in that bullpen. I believe he'll be the closer this year. So we'll see what happens with that rotation. Kind of not really sure what's going to happen, but top prospect Bobby Witt is a guy to keep an eye on for the future. For them, the shortstop, former number 2 overall pick. And in the cellar, the second worst team in baseball in my eyes, the Detroit Tigers. They didn't do anything this offseason. They're just the same team. They got, Miggy Cabrera still there, obviously. He'll headline their lineup, but just a team that doesn't have much talent right now. The rotation has some solid guys. Matt Boyd is still there. Michael Fulmer, we'll see if he can bounce back. He was obviously a former AL Rookie of the Year winner. Came to the Tigers in the Yoenis Cespedes deal with the New York Mets, obviously. But, like you said, they've got a ton of good young prospects on the rise. Casey Mize, the other pitching prospect, which you botched the name of. I won't go and Spencer Torkelson, the number 1 pick from Arizona State, like you said, who's going to be playing a huge role in their future. So we'll see. Only time's going to tell, but the Tigers won't be competitive this year. I'm not going to talk about them for any more, just because it's not worth it. But Tigers will be in the cellar. So top 3, same for me, but I will switch the Royals and the Tigers, and that'll be the AL Central for me.
Yep, great predictions there, all off the top for you, all written down for me. So there's obviously the big difference there between us. But
you hold your own for sure.
next few weeks, I mean, G Money's gonna get me on track. He's gonna get me on track. The next few weeks, next few months, and I want to be like Cam, hopefully, by some point in the season. That's the goal. That's the goal. Um, but with that was our baseball. I kind of want to go back to something you briefly mentioned it earlier on when we were talking football, and something I completely forgot we should talk about, and
Yeah.
that's the Deshaun Watson stuff, the allegations. And I guess I just wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it could be false? Is it, of course, I'm getting your internet connection is unstable, but I guess what are your thoughts on the entire situation, how it would affect him in the future?
It sure makes the situation and the trade interesting. I don't want to comment on, whether the allegations are false or not, just because I don't want to discredit what the victims are saying and hypothesizing. The situation from Deshaun's perspective, in his words, does seem a little fishy, and there have been cases where athletes are falsely accused of this stuff. So I don't think it's out of the unnecessary realm for these allegations to be false, but at the same time, I'm not going to say and come sit here and say that these people are lying and our stories are not true, because I don't want to do that. So, but in terms of the effect it'll have on the trade, because that's what I want to focus on. I really don't know if the Houston Texans are going to end up trading him, because now you got this whole element with other teams saying, do we want to acquire this guy? That if all these things are true, this guy might be out of the league just because of off the field issues. This guy could be in jail, literally. Um, it's going to be hard to trade him. And they're already not taking calls. So for me, this is a win for the Texans. It makes it more likely that he'll stay there, even though he doesn't want to stay. It's just a mess situation. It just continues to be even more of a mess. The Houston Texans are probably getting screwed even more by this. Even though if they do want to keep him, it's probably going to, give them an excuse to say, oh, we don't really want to move on from him right now. It's the whole situation a mess. But in terms of trading him, um, uh, we got to see what happens with that. I don't know when this is going to be resolved or whatnot. If this is going to affect his trade value. I mean, I really just don't know. But the whole situation is a mess. And right now, if I had to say, I would not expect Deshaun Watson to be traded this offseason.
Yep, I completely agree. I mean, everything does seem a little bit fishy, just the timing of everything. Right as he wants to get traded, and talks are heating up a little bit. Of course, he's coming out seeing teams he wants to play for, and that's kind of when things start to roll out of these women accusing him, of course, of the sexual abuse and all that kind of stuff. So I'll agree with you there. You can't really say if it's true or false. I mean, you did have over 12 women come out and say that it did happen, all about it at the same time. So it's a little bit fishy, but if it's true, then it's gonna be a tough situation for Deshaun Watson. I think for the Houston Texans, it's gonna be hard, and for other teams, of course, you're not gonna want to trade for him right now. And because there's all these women, it's all so new. The league has to investigate it. Really, the police have to investigate it as well. So teams are obviously gonna have to wait for that, and who knows how long that'll take. I mean, could this be something where it's closer to the draft or after the draft? Because I think once you get into a week or two within the draft, it's gonna be really hard if those allegations are proven false or proven true, or if it's still undecided to really get rid of him. So it's going to be a long off season for Deshaun Watson and the Texans. And if they cannot decide whether this is true or false anytime soon, once it comes draft time, it's going to be hard to trade him, because Texans, they're not going to want to trade him if they can't get the draft capital this offseason. So I think it's going to be Deshaun Watson really ending up sitting out if he's not out of the league or not on a team this offseason after whatever happens, whatever goes down.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't know. It's the situation is just so unknown. So, we'll leave it at that. I think I don't think either of us have too much more to say on that, but definitely a good point to bring up and discuss.
Yep, just it's a nice little thing to finish it off. Well, maybe not nice, but we'll see. So I guess with that, we'll wrap it up, because you guys are going to be getting. Well, actually, it's going to be out Sunday, so you're going to have to make sure you go and watch the OTA clips, March Madness from last night and today, every single day. March Madness on OTA clips, baby. You're gonna have to make sure you like, comment, subscribe, not only over here but over there, because you're gonna be getting daily episodes for who knows how long by G Money and Mac Rommel. So make sure to like.
We'll make sure to get some special guests on there.
You know it. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe on both channels. And as Griffin said at the beginning of the episode, go over to Apple and Spotify and make sure to subscribe or follow whatever it is over there. So if you guys can't watch on YouTube, you could go on in your car, put it on the radio, Bluetooth, whatever you got. You could go and listen over there. And as always, we thank you all for watching. Also, make sure to follow us on our Instagrams. My Instagram is mac.rommel. Griffin's Instagram is
Griffin Senek.
our podcast Instagram is Outside the Arena Podcast. Make sure to follow us there. Drop comment or even DM us on there if you want to come on. Have any ideas? We'd love to hear from you guys. So as always, stay safe, and we'll see you all next week on Outside the Arena.